Good evening, one and all. Welcome along. It is season 4, episode number 52. And tonight I'm joined by Mike, Paul, and a very special guest about to join us imminently. We'll leave his announcement until he joins. Are you good?
All good, yeah. How are you? I haven't seen you in a while.
We've seen each other a little bit more regularly in recent weeks, Mike, which is not the norm for us. Normally, we're on opposing shows, so you know.
That means if we're together, it means the Cowboy season is done.
And what's ahead of us?
Yay! The best time of the year. It's better than Christmas.
It's Christmas. Paul, you're looking on there, going, "You guys are crazy."
I am. No, don't get me wrong. I'm obviously gutted the season's over. We're not actually talking about the Cowboys playing in the Super Bowl or anything like that. But it's always interesting to see how we kind of talk about regards to the future and stuff like that, what we could potentially look at in the draft and stuff like that. And I would say, when it comes to the lead up to the draft, it's definitely more of a fan experience where you get to kind of play. It's a game, pretty much. You're playing a game to figure out who are we picking. You're trying to source it all out and just kind of go based on your assumptions and that. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, and just Lebarski joined the show right at the end last week. He's here at the very start.
Good Lord.
And Lebarski, as much as we would love to as the special guest for tonight, there's someone even bigger than you about to join this show. So I'm building it up for him now, and it's going to be hilarious. But Paul, I'm just going to pick up on a point there that you were saying, that the draft is a game we're all going to be playing, and we all love to do mock drafts at this time of the year, and before
I'm literally doing one right now as we speak.
And before we joined, I was saying Noah Sewell has dropped from the first round down to the third round. And players are going to ascend and players are going to descend.
Yeah. I mean, you're looking at players from the Senior Bowl, in particular, like the Cody Mack, the North Dakota State guy. His stock's rising up and stuff like that. You're seeing some of the wide receivers from lower schools really making a good impression and stuff like that. Yeah. So, yeah, it's like I said, it's one thing we keep saying here in UK Cowboys. The draft is a lottery. You just don't know what you're expecting when you draft the player.
It's a box of chocolates.
Yeah, you can draft this player knowing his physical attributes, etc., etc. But when it really comes down to it, when you bring that player in and try to get him into your system, it's a completely different. It's is it going to work or is it not? That's pretty much it with every player that you draft. There's some players in the later rounds, they pick it up straight away and they actually outdoing the veterans sometimes. For example, we saw DeLone Brand coming out of nowhere, forcing out Kelvin Joseph.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it just shows that it doesn't matter if you're drafted the first round, second round, undrafted. As long as you're able to pick up the pieces and actually get your head stuck down, that's what matters.
Yeah, Mike, I'm going to throw this one to you. Joe has said he really likes the TCU quarterback Max Duggan. Have him learn behind Dak. Thoughts?
He's trying to go undrafted, I think.
Yeah, and he had an up and down Senior Bowl, which talking about the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
And also the thing that he left behind is that final game in the 90. And that's just a complete and utter. Yeah, I mean, he choked the big time. And, that team looked for Max to take that game on his shoulders. Because, the 90, the best way to describe what happened to Max Duggan in that game was, it's a good saying, I think, from Tyson, where he once said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. That's exactly what happened to Max Duggan. He got punched in the mouth, went, oh, good Lord, and just curled up into a ball. do I want him to? I don't know. He's just. What's funny is he will be quite polarizing because there'll be so much opinion on him. Because on one hand, you've got what he did at TCU in that final year.
Yeah.
Things that you can point at where you're like, wow, that was really, really good. And then it just swings back the other way once you look at the 19, the Senior Bowl, where up against the best of the best. And I just if he's going to go undrafted and you take him as one of your, and you take him in, as one of those undrafted guys, possibly, yeah, why not? You're taking a stab. One thing I will say is they are going to draft a quarterback. Jerry Jones has said, and I know it can be this is the time of year, that we call it the lying season, and lying, not lion. So yeah, but I think for definite though, it's in the cards that they need to get another quarterback in. They need to develop something. And Mike McCarthy historically has always been one of those guys to take a quarterback late and see what you got and try to develop it.
Just about to bring in our extremely special guest. It is return of the Mac, Mr. Richard Jones. How are you doing, sir?
All good. Emphasis on the special.
Special indeed, my friend. Special indeed.
We've given you the big build up, Rich. It's been a while since we've had you on. You've had things going on in life, so we've decided we're going to ask you. A couple of weeks removed, the emotion is gone. Give us your thoughts on the Cowboys season.
It's a weird one. It's kind of what you'd expect, but not at the same time. Surprising in a couple of ways. Especially as the season went on, the O-line started doing quite well, started gelling quite well, held up quite well, and then obviously it all sort of, not on the O-line, but came apart offensively then at the end. Defense is brilliant. Wouldn't change a thing with the defense. Unless it's obviously for the better. If it's an upgrade, great. But depressing it lost to the 49ers, but here's what it is. It was close, though. It was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. I was dreading that game. I was dreading the game before, but I was really dreading that game.
Yeah. So, given what's gone on since, obviously, Kellen Moore has departed, Dan Quinn has been retained, a lot of positional coaches have left. Is there anything that you feel should happen that hasn't happened yet? Or are you happy with how the offseason has gone so far?
Relatively happy so far. I mean, it's very early doors. But the interesting thing is it very much seems like a bit of a rewrite for the offense as a whole. Like when you look who's gone, the coaching staff that's gone, a lot of people on that side of the ball, and it seems to be keying up very much for it's doing things Mike McCarthy's way, and he's going to live or die by the sword. Could be quite an interesting season depending on what happens. I think you have to win the game you just lost at the very least. Very least. You need to make that divisional championship game for him to stay. And I know that's very down the line, but I think that's a minimum, and I think it's keying up for that already.
Yeah. And I suppose, like, Mike, one of the things, and I know we haven't spoken about this properly since the season ended, a lot of what happened in the draft, it kind of didn't make a lot of sense to me, but you kept saying, keep the faith. I know what the plan is. The plan was to go back to the run game. Do you expect something like that to happen again with this upcoming draft class, that they're going to try and build the team to run the ball even more now that Mike McCarthy is going to be calling the plays?
Well, you think it's going to be a West Coast offense, so it's going to be a totally different style of running, totally different style of what you look for in running backs, most certainly.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be looking in the draft. It depends what they do in free agency, but that's just a cop out answer. So if we just say at this stage, if they were to go into the draft with what they got, then really you're looking at wide receivers at this point now. Because go back to the Mike McCarthy Green Bay team before, say, 19, 2018, 2019. And they a lot of wide receivers because you need them for that West Coast style offense.
Yeah. So before we do go any further, look, if anyone has comments, if you want to send us in your questions, what we do plan to do today is kind of talk about some of the Shrine Bowl guys, talk about some of the Senior Bowl guys. If anyone hasn't been following along, Mike has been doing a series both on Blogging the Boys and on our own channels of players coming out of the both of those games, what he likes about them, what he doesn't like, and he's going to continue to do that. So make sure you're checking that out. But if you do have questions, send them in, and we do see questions coming in, but we're going to flip it over, and we are going to... Someone beats me to it. The news and updates. So, obviously, as we said, Kellen Moore is out. Mike McCarthy is going to call the plays. Brian Schottenheimer, who has been on the staff for the 2022 season, is our new de facto offensive coordinator, even though Mike McCarthy will call the plays. So, how did everyone feel about that appointment?
Go for it, guys.
I'm very happy. Put it that way. Like, I think there's no really... like, don't get me wrong, I'm happy for Kellen Moore to move on and stuff like that, but the problem with Kellen was he was just so inconsistent. So, but... And I'm going to jump into a different scenario here, different part. Like, it's still related, but I cannot help what the Chargers did yesterday. Has anyone seen their hype video?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Why they did a hype video for Kellen Moore? I'm happy you're happy. That's it. That's all I'm saying about the Chargers right now. I'm happy you're happy because we are very happy I'm very happy that Kellen Moore's out the door. So now we can actually get someone who can have a bit more aggression and actually treat our players like actual players and not like actual former teammates. So I'm on board with that. I'm also on board with our new offensive lineman coach. I'm very much on board. The guy, is it Mike? What's this? Solari? Mike Solari.
Yeah.
40 plus years being an offensive lineman coach. He's also been under Tom Landry in his last 2 years when he was back in Dallas as a special teams assistant and offensive lines assistant. So this guy comes with a wealth of knowledge, right? And I think with him coming into Dallas, he's got...
Sorry, that comment.
Yeah, the Chargers just took our ex-wife. Good work. Brilliant comment, Joe. What I was going to say is that that really threw me off now as well.
Sorry.
You were talking about Mike Solari.
Yeah, Mike Solari. Yeah, I think for the first time in a long time, Solari's going into Dallas, and he's actually got like Zach Martin, Tyler Smith, who are still raw. Like he's got an arsenal of really good offensive linemen that just need that extra bit of guidance to really become the great wall again.
Yeah.
And I think Solari could do that. So I'm very excited to see what he can do for that, and also Schottenheimer as well. So I'm very interested to see what, as we kind of talked about, it's going to be like a West Coast offense. So it's very going to be intriguing. I'm very excited to see what we're going to do.
Yeah. Rich, give us your thoughts, and then we'll bring in one.
Pretty much the same, to be honest. I'm looking forward to that depth and that wealth of knowledge. Hopefully that will eliminate the simple errors that have happened in the past couple of years. You bring in some of that experience, you would imagine that they will, one of the first things they will do will make sure that the fundamentals are being done right and being done properly before they move on to anything cute. that is probably what I'm looking forward to the most, because we know this team, it was better this year, but this team still has had problems with issues on that front, both in terms of penalties and things that haven't been flagged with penalties, but there's still issues. I'm looking forward to that side of things, and things generally being probably a bit neater and a bit more solid.
Yeah. Mike, go on. Give us your thoughts.
I literally have nothing more to add on that. I mean, it's the case. The saying is, if it's not broken, don't fix it. But at the same time, if it's not working, then change it. And that's what the Cowboys have done.
Yeah. Okay. So the other bit of news, and Mike, this was news that you said to us this evening. So we'll throw it over to you to start with. Obviously, there is talk and rumor doing the rounds in Dallas that Tony Pollard might be tagged.
That's what they're saying. It's not confirmed, but there is murmurs at the moment going on where they're saying, this is where it's going. Yeah. If that's the case, then I don't think it puts them out of the running to draft a running back, because you still need something for the West Coast offense. Tony Pollard does work.
Yeah.
He kind of does too. That there's still a role for him, but you're going to need something else there with a bit more. Like, what do you think what they had before? They have the likes of like Ty Montgomery running back there in Green Bay. That's the type of guy they're going to be looking at. Those sleeker running backs. So that's really what they're going to be looking down the road. And, that's the sort of guy you get in the third round, fourth round.
Yeah. Rich, Paul, have you any thoughts on Tony Pollard returning on the tag?
I'm a bit skeptical about using him for the tag when he's coming off from injury, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Summed up my thoughts exactly.
Like, I mean, if history proves itself, players coming back from a massive injury and a big contract never works out. Like, we saw that in with the return season with Michael Gallup. Like, don't get me wrong, like with Gallup, like he came in. I think he had a lot of expectations to be that number 2 guy, and just come up from a major surgery, was rushed back. That'll probably be the same case with if Pollard, if he's offered that franchise tag, people expect him to be on the field, but he's just picked up a big massive injury. So
yeah,
if I'm being honest, and I'm going to say it, I would let him walk.
Yeah. And Lebarski is in agreement with you here. Lebarski knows
we are not drafting. We are not drafting. He'll be gone by then. He'll be gone. Like there's some good running backs in the middle of that draft. There really is.
Yeah, your value, especially for this offense.
Yeah,
like even in a West Coast offense, Bijan makes no sense. It doesn't work. He's pretty much
like. He would be. I don't know. I'm trying to think like what type of team Bijan would be
on a spread offense. On a spread offense works perfectly.
Like I don't know.
I have a feeling Bijan Robinson could end up with the Chiefs.
Yeah, I was just about to say the Chiefs.
Yeah, he could end up there.
Perfect type of place. And when you think about it, drafting a first round running back is a bit of a sketchy thing to do. But it's not a bad thing to do if you're a team that is only a running back away. If you can get a running back and he can be a solid running back for the next 6 years with a first round pick, because you can 5th year option franchise tag. You think Bijan Robinson by that time, he's going to be 28, which means he's on the downside of his career. Yeah. So there you are. We cut loose. See you later. Bye-bye.
Yeah. I have been meaning to say this for weeks, but I think Lebarski is. I have a question: have Lebarski and Jamie Smith been seen in the same room?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
But Rich, give us your thoughts there, because Lebarski he's kind of said here, let Pollard walk. June 1st, Zeke called him draft Bijan Robinson. I mean, I think the running back room is going to turn over in this off season, regardless.
I think regarding Pollard, taking it one step at a time, I think the Cowboys have been a bit of a victim of their own success this season with him, or Tony's success. They kind of have to franchise tag him if they want him around next season, because regardless of the injuries, which are not a massive thing in the grand scheme of things, you've got a high ankle sprain and you've got a non-compound fracture. Recovery time's estimated 3 months. And he's got a full off season. You expect probably a slow start to next season for him compared to how he was this season. But by mid-season, you'd expect him realistically to probably be near enough where he was at. A team, regardless of his injuries, will give him at best a better 1-year deal or 2-year deal. Basically better than what Dallas will do, short of franchise tagging him. So the only way to keep him around, in my eyes, for 1 year, realistically, is to tag him. And you'd be silly to not want him around next year, in my opinion, especially when you're making that transition to the West Coast offense, like Mike said.
I'm just going to add in this, and I don't know if you guys remember, what did we do with DeMarcus Lawrence? Did we not franchise tag him? And when we did, like, we kept the negotiations going, then we sent him to a longer term deal that cancelled out the franchise tag.
Yes.
So why can't we not just do that? Like,
nothing to stop you.
Like, so we can still put Tony Pollard on a franchise tag, but immediately after that, then come up with an actual, okay, at least you're here for next season, but let's get you done for a longer term deal and cancel out this franchise tag starting from now.
This is
where I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, and this is where I contradict myself, because whilst I've just said the injury isn't a massive deal, it could be. You don't want to be giving a multi-year contract to him. You want to give him a 1-year deal, see if he's actually okay next year, and then go from there. And the only way to really do that, I think, is to tag him, which sucks. But
I'm sorry, I'm gonna come at you, Joe, for this one, for your comment about Michael Gallup, right? Michael Gallup was put into the fire because there was no other wide receivers. He was forced into it, and it's unfortunate. Yeah, he's injured in that, and every first season coming off an injury is always going to be a downfall. But I would make that if if Gallup was to play the exact same way he did this year for next season, then yes, I would be completely pissed off about that.
Yeah. So, like, I was going to make that point that Joe made in terms of I would buyer beware in terms of giving Tony a long-term contract. Yeah. And it kind of brings us to the question here that Lebarski is asking us: what deal would Pollard actually take that we'd be comfortable with? And then the next point is, what do we do with Zeke?
Realistically, you want the 1-year deal to see what you've got.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I'd accept a 1-year deal, Rich. You're talking about 25 million taken up in your
given his production this year.
Yeah.
This is the flip side of it, like I said, given what his injuries actually are, his age, all the rest of it, someone is going to be silly and give him a better deal, and then he's gone. Yeah. And then you kind of got to start all over again. You know, one of the bad things about this team is that they get in a good position with a group of any positional group, and they have not sometimes an abundance of riches, sometimes they're just solid. And then the next season they let it all go to pot. And then that takes time to recover. And they always do that when they have problems elsewhere on the roster. They haven't been the most clever, I think, at retaining people at strong positions. They've made problems for themselves in the past, including last offseason.
So Lebarski is saying, I'll be Graham and say the Bears. I'm assuming he's talking about Pollard going to the Bears with that. If not, come back in there, Lebarski, and we'll definitely pull it up. Like, I suppose if you look at it this way, as you say, Rich, you know, tag him for a year. We have Zeke for 2023. And then you can make a decision that you can move on from both guys in a year's time and start actually going, right, I don't have huge money tied up in my running back room. I can draft a couple of guys because a lot of teams are getting production from guys on rookie contracts. And I think that's possibly where we need to go.
Rookie contracts historically in the NFL is where running backs are the most productive. Historically, it's the most. So with running backs, it's the opposite of the rest of the NFL. That once they have rookie contracts over and you give them a contract, you're paying them for what they were, not what they will become.
Yeah.
And if you take a later round running back that potentially suits your West style offense, and Mike McCarthy is gone, and then the West Coast offense style is gone with him in a year, it's not terrible. And you are probably relatively easily available to move on from that guy or to shop into whoever and get something back for him.
Yeah.
You've not lost a great deal.
Yeah.
That's easily done.
So I'm just reading these comments. Yeah, so Lebarski is kind of agreeing. He's saying good teams aren't paying running backs anymore and haven't for a while.
Yeah, Dallas kind of bucked that trend. Dallas are the ones that bucked that trend.
Yeah, like we've paid Zeke the big money. The Giants followed, paid Barkley big money. Kamara, I think, is getting big money in New Orleans. So I don't see any of the teams. Although I suppose San Francisco are going to have a huge problem because they have Christian McCaffrey. But outside of that, I don't see many of the, top running backs. Like, was Josh Jacobs was the leading rusher last season, and he's probably going to be released by the Raiders, or he's not going to. He didn't have his 5th-year option extended anyway, did he?
I'm not sure. I can't speak for the Raiders. I pay very little attention to them. But
they look to be moving on. Derrick Henry, the other, I suppose, leading rusher, Titans look to be moving on from him as well, So you've very few guys in this league that are going to get a good contract as a running back. So maybe it's time to just break it all down and just, go with a couple of cheap guys and hope you get something.
Start again.
But obviously, look, there was no game at the weekend and the Pro Bowl was on, and it was an absolute slog to get through. I tuned in for bits and pieces, but the reason I'm asking that is, I think it was Lebarski did put in a question. He said, after watching the Pro Bowl, are we going to use Robert Cavante Turpin as a defensive end?
Are you going to start using Zeke as a center?
Yeah.
Oh.
I love the guy, but are you going to start using Zeke as a center? Same question.
Yeah. But look, the main thing we said we were going to talk about is the Shrine game and the Senior Bowl game. And the way we're going to break this down a little bit is we're going to assume the Cowboys deal with their needs, that they're going to approach the draft with a best player available mentality, that they've covered O-line, they've covered edge, they've covered defensive line, they've covered their secondary, and you're then able to approach the draft, as I say, with a best player available option. So Rich and Paul are going to pick positional groups that they think the Cowboys need to draft. Mike, with his knowledge and what he's written for Blogging the Boys and our own content, is going to give us a breakdown on some guys who
But do you want to do the Shrine first? Do it that way, yeah. Shrine then Senior.
Well, I'd say you can probably, if the guys want to give us a position group, and then you can say, right, this guy from Shrine game, this guy from Senior Bowl.
Okie dokie.
And break it down like that.
Ooh, that's pressure.
So first,
you go first, Paul. Your position group.
Well, it's specifically offensive line, but I'm more particular for guard.
Well, you already know your guy. We've already spoken about him, Osiris Torrance. I mean, you could probably speak about him, Paul. I mean, you like him.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've done more research. I've only just saw the clips of him pretty much, but yeah, I would rather to see us look more into guard this year.
Yeah. One guy actually who I think, and it was quite a big deal for him as well, is Michael Schmidt. Now he plays center. He's a big guy, but he is athletic.
Whoa.
But what was good that I saw, and it's a big thing for his value, is they put him in a guard and let him take some snaps, and he didn't miss a beat.
Position
he was,
flex.
Yeah. And like, if he was to say in practices, like, who was the best player at all positions, offense and defense, who, not the game, but the practices, I would say Schmidt was the best. He shone the most.
So Schmitz was the name I was going to actually mention to you, Mike. You know, I think he's mainly played as center, isn't it?
Yeah, he's a center.
But we'd be looking for him, I suppose, to play left guard, would we?
Yeah, and going off what I saw in the practices, he would be able to do that. Yeah, he's going to be playing left guard. I mean, you're not going to get him to take Zach Mine's spot or position here, you know?
No, definitely.
And that way you can keep Tyler Smith on the outside. The question then is, of course, is like, if you're doing that, that pretty much is going to seal the deal for Ron Smith, right?
Ron Smith?
Tyron Smith.
Oh,
he's retiring.
Yeah.
Do you, or do you just get Schmitz in, and you have competition at a few positions?
Isn't Schmitz a center though by default?
Yeah, I know he is a center. But what I'm saying is that they put him on guard snaps at the Senior Bowl in practices, and
he looked good.
Yeah, really good.
Miss a beat.
Didn't he look just as good playing guard as he did center? I mean, when you think about it, and like for a guy his size as well, like normally you would be like a bit apprehensive of the idea, but it worked. He made it work and it looked good.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to flip back to 2014. And Zach Martin had played his whole career at left tackle for Notre Dame. And he was put in as a right guard in the Senior Bowl. Him against Aaron Donald was the Senior Bowl 2014.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. And then, I mean, like, if you want to go the other way as well, then, and you say, all right, let's put Tyler Smith back at guard and look at tackle.
No.
I'm just saying, if you went the other way, I know you like Cody Mack. You are a guy that likes the small school.
Yes, I'm a big fan of the small schools.
Yeah.
We've got a lot more to prove.
Yeah. Blake Freeland kind of like, he didn't move the needle either way for me. I was kind of like, huh. The guy who stands out the most is the guy probably everyone's heard of at the moment is DeJuan Jones. That guy is just a behemoth. Like, even standing next to big offensive linemen, he makes them look small. That's the best way to describe it.
Oh, the Ohio State tackle.
Yeah, who's like 6 foot. I think he's just shy of 6'9" and just shy of 360 pounds, and he can move.
Oof.
So
just Google DeJuan Jones at the Senior Bowl for a picture, and you'll see him in the huddle, like with all the other offensive linemen, and it's ridiculous. It looks like a joke. It looks like somebody's playing a prank.
So the question I'd have for you then, Mike, is he not this year's Daniel Falele?
Yeah, he is.
A big trash can full of dirt.
Yeah, the big bulky guy. Yeah, he is a mountain, and
yeah.
I think day one he practiced and then he got injured, which is a shame because he was just absolutely destroying day one in practice. But what you did see is you saw they got him to do some movement skills, and he did it. Got him to do some stuff on the inside, did that too and looked good. Held up well, good use of hands, and was able to move his feet, and the lateral movement was really good too. For a guy his size, really impressed. Really impressed.
Yeah.
And the only other guy then is, like I say, Osiris Torrance then from Florida. He probably on the game itself, he was the best offensive lineman in that game. More than anything, pass protection was fine, but the run blocking, like a lot of the running game that was involved in that on his team was literally from him carving up holes and then moving into the second level and getting onto linebackers.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pull this name up because it's a name I'm familiar with. DJ Dog, our resident Big 12 expert, has highlighted him, and Paul is happy to see his name being mentioned, and that's Steve Avila from TCU, who plays as a guard. He's a guy maybe 4th round that you could look at.
3rd round at best.
Who did you say?
Steve Avila.
Oh, Steve Avila. Yeah. Go on, Paul. Go on. I'll let you take it.
Yeah, I mean, Avila's I actually quite like him a lot. Like in terms of foot placement, in terms of blocking, pass protection is fairly decent. I don't know if it's just me, but I think he just needs to bulk up a little bit more. But I think that like any other rookie, it's just a standard. Really, rookies just need to add more weight on. So, but yeah, I like the look of him. So, I'm going to do more game tape on him and just try and see what else I do like about him and what things I don't like.
Yeah, better as a center for sure. But if you go back and watch him, watch for the lunging, Paul, and the waist bending.
Yeah,
does that a lot. That's why he loads to love, super coordinated. Can and like that. I always like offensive linemen that from the snap, that quick burst forward. He's really got that. The trouble you've got with him is that once he gets engaged, he'll start to waist bend and he'll start to lunge, and you get these weird, almost like sometimes he'll pancake himself on reach blocks. Don't ask me how he manages to do it, but you'll see it a lot.
Yeah. So, Rich, just before I ask you your first position group that you want to address, Labarsky has asked us a question here, and we'll go round the horn, maybe give 2 each. As we start looking at the draft, what are our biggest needs in order, if possible? So, Rich, if you want to give us 2, Mike give us 2, Paul give us 2, I'll give 2 as well. And let's see if we can reach some kind of consensus.
I think you need the best interior lineman you can get on the offensive line. And then probably wide receiver / linebacker.
Okay.
And I know I'm right in the fence there, but that's going to be a bit of a need potentially.
Paul, give me yours.
I'm going different. Wide receiver is my top priority.
Okay.
And second of all, defensive interior tackle. It's particularly. I think if we don't bring in Hankins, we will need to find someone else that will.
Yeah.
So,
Mike, give us your 2.
I'm going both ways. I'm going inside offensive line one way, inside defensive line the other way.
IOLTT. And I'm going to go completely different from all 3 of you. I'm going to go cornerback.
Yeah. Oh.
And an edge.
Edge, yeah.
Edge.
Could be a sneaky need.
That's what I think. As great as the defense has been, we're in a huge hole with a cornerback. And myself and Paul said this on the show last week, that bar Tank and Micah, you don't have a consistent guy playing on the edge who's going to get you sacks all season long. We had Dante Fowler at the end of the season, Dorrance Armstrong at the start of the season. We didn't have that consistent guy all season with the two of them. So I think, look, between us, we've named 5-6 positions and there's no consensus.
I'd still say linebacker is right up there as well.
Yeah, and that's
linebacker
could be.
Not it could be. I think it is because the depth wise.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Because if we don't bring back LVE, who else have we got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's desperate, but if they don't bring back LVE, it instantly shoots
It's a
right
big
up to the top of your priority.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why I'm
But-
saying E. It depends what they do with LVE.
I
To
will
answer that.
I will say though, at some point in the draft, we will have to draft a linebacker. We will have to draft a cornerback, wide receiver, double dipping. I think we're going to have to.
A lot of wide receiver.
Like the way I'm kind of seeing it, like I obviously kind of did my mock draft, but based on positional needs, I've went with 2 wide receivers, a cornerback, linebacker, an interior, a tackle, an edge, a running back, like just for the later rounds, like just to bring different dynamic, and just a mix up between the best player available, like a safety and even potentially that quarterback that everyone keeps talking about, based on what Jerry's saying.
What's the question for Mike? What's the depth like at corner secondary, specifically with quite lanky guys?
Loads of that.
Yeah, exactly.
The tall defensive backs is like, it must be like not a new thing, but the wave of what's coming in there. You know, like we said that Dan Quinn likes his taller defensive backs. Well, it seems to be that this is the way it's going. He was ahead of the curve.
You're not that great at catching, but your route running is okay.
There's a lot of tall, lanky corners. Lanky corners. Yeah, loads of them. The issue this year is going the other way. So like, who said wide receiver was a need? A big one. Was it you, Red?
That was Paul.
Paul. Sorry, Paul.
That wide receiver. The issue with wide receiver is normally, like when you think of the last few years in the draft with the wide receiver class, it's always been that's been the best. It's always been the wide receiver class is really it's stacked, it's deep, it's got so many riches involved that you can pick any type and it'll fit, and there's different types of wide receiver. This year it's actually not. It's like the first year in a while I can think of where the wide receiver class at the top is really good, but there's only a small selection of them. You got a nice group of these day 2 guys, and then the rest is all in day 3.
Yeah.
It's not a talented, big, deep class. Same as interior defensive line.
Yeah.
Are we that convinced at staying on wide receivers very quickly in terms of what we've got? Are we so convinced that the wide receiver core we've got is so inconsistent and unfixable at catching the ball consistently that we need to move on and get so many new ones in? Are we that set?
It's not the case that there's anything. There's certain aspects that are wrong. I'm not saying the wide receivers we've got are perfect. They've all got flaws. But I think what the issue is when you look at the wide receiver core the Cowboys have got, they're too much of the same. So they're all very similarly built, and they're all very similar in terms of how they can separate and how they run routes. It's all very, very similar. What you need, and this is, we're talking draft, is very much like what Clemson Tigers had in their wide receiver core. They're all the same. So what happens in terms of defending that is you just go to your defensive back group and you just go, if you can defend him, you can defend the rest of them because they're all very similar. What we need, especially with the West Coast offense too, is you need a lot of variety. You need different types, different body types, and guys who separate in different ways, because then that makes the whole to defend them. It adds another dimension of complexity to it.
Yeah. Zabarski is kind of agreeing with what you're saying there, Mike. And DJ Dog just coming back in, he's saying cornerback is a deep class, but again, there's no Sauce Gardners or a Derek Stingley, but overall the depth is very good. And that's the thing with cornerbacks. You will get cornerbacks every round in this draft. So it might be a position they double dip in, because outside of Trayvon Diggs, and there are people who are going to have questions in this offseason about Trayvon Diggs as well, we're not set at our cornerback 2, at our cornerback 3, who they are, who plays in the slot, who plays on the outside. And you could see huge turnover in that cornerback room on its own. But, Rich, what is the next position group? We've talked about interior offensive line. So what is the next position group that you would like to see addressed?
I would like to see wide receiver addressed.
Yeah.
For the reasons that you guys have said. And I completely agree, and I agree with the comments. I think Mike's hit the nail on the head. It does very much, and again, I know this is, like Mike said earlier, it's very much like a bit of a weak answer in terms of, it does depend what they do in free agency.
Yeah.
Because a big part of it, and like has just been said, is the playmaking ability, not just moving the ball, although they've had problems moving the ball. Depending on who you bring back, depends on how much you impact what ability they have in those regions already, especially in terms of playmaking ability, because obviously towards the end of the season, you brought in, mine's got blank. What's his name?
James Washington.
No, his actual name. Ghost. Oh, mine's gone blank.
T.Y. Hilton?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Brought him in, instantly made a play. Didn't really see much afterwards, but I'm like, okay, what much more is there to be gained from him? But one guy that really caught there's two guys that caught my eye. Mike, I'm going to need your help on this because, again, like you said, I've had lots going on. Names I'm terrible with anyway. You probably know the two guys I'm going to ask you about anyway. Basically, the fastest guy that was there and the guy that defies the laws of physics and turns on a dime and changes his momentum like it's ridiculous.
So you've got, in terms of wide receiver at the Senior Bowl, the guys who were really good.
Yeah,
Michael Wilson was the biggest standout from Stanford. Like that guy. What's crazy is that not many people will know about him either because he spent like so much of his college career injured. But in the Senior Bowl, you got to see him running routes. He was up against cornerbacks. And what's crazy is, like in the Senior Bowl drill, the wide receiver versus cornerback drills, those one-on-ones, usually the cornerbacks will win because it's one-on-one. You just got to defend him. They're not running concepts or anything. It's just you and him. So usually corners can win that battle. But Michael Wilson was all over the place. And even in the game, caught 4 passes for 76 yards and a touchdown. He even had another touchdown, but it got called back.
Yeah.
And what was you saying about the fastest guy? That would have been Jaden Reed, who was like 21 miles.
Yeah, it was in the comments. Houston, wasn't he?
Yeah, 21 miles an hour.
Mr. 21 mile an hour.
Michigan State he's from. He was rapid. Yeah. But you do have Tank as well, Tank Dell.
Sorry, that's who DJ Dog has.
Yeah, he's a nifty fast guy. But his issue is he's like 5'8", 5'7". But what was really good is that it doesn't seem to bother him. And when you watch it on tape and at the Senior Bowl, he's the only issue you got is when he's going to go up against bigger, taller corners. He's going to struggle.
Yeah.
But on a West Coast offense, when you think about it, when you think you're running crosses, slants, comebacks, curls, when you think that it's going to be these shorter, quicker, stabbier routes, could actually fit what Dell is all about.
Yeah. So, Mike, the area I'm going to ask you about, tell me about edge. Guys that can play on the edge.
From the Senior Bowl, the immediate standout is Will McDonald straight away. Like that guy is a beast. I'm absolute animal. So pure athletic kind of guy, rocked up to hell. Long arms as well, really long arms. I think they're like over 35 inch. Yeah, huge. Didn't get a sack in the game, but if you go back and watch the Senior Bowl, if you just type in Will McDonald Senior Bowl, what you'll see is you'll just see him constantly floating around in the backfield. Like, to me, pressures are just as important as sacks Because if you're creating pressures, and Paul will know this, playing the position, if you're just in there creating pressure, just enough to make the quarterback make a missed throw, just it's just knocking the timing out slightly, then that's enough. That's what all you're trying to do. You're just trying to force a throw. And that's what Will McDonald was really good at. He was, I would say, the best defensive player in that game.
Very good. So, Paul, I'll go back around to you. What is your next position group?
Interior defensive lineman, particularly at 0 or 1 tech.
Yeah, but that's nice and easy. That's Keanu Benton.
From Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people are blowing up what he did in the Senior Bowl, but I think what a lot of that is that they just hadn't watched him in the season. That again, that what I seen from Benton in the Senior Bowl didn't move the needle up or down. They were just like, that's exactly what he's been. His issue can be, though, which is weird for his size, is run blocking, because he seems to be better, weirdly, at his position, at his size, at pass rushing. But if you go and watch the Senior Bowl practices, you'll see it, that he's quick off the mark, quick burst, quick explosiveness, out of his stance, nice and quick, and gets through it. He can get through contact nice and quickly, and then he's into the backfield. It's a really odd thing to watch for a guy his size, but that's what he does do. Is run blocking or run defending. I mean, yeah, it's something I have to go back and watch. I'll go back and watch it, but it is a weird part of his game he needs to brush up on a bit. There are other nose tackles, but obviously they weren't at the Senior Bowl.
So, Rich, give us your second area.
Already given it, you haven't I? Wide receiver.
Yeah.
No, but give us another one.
Linebacker.
Oh, that's a toughie. The linebackers were a little bit all over the place. There was nobody that really stood out. There were guys that kind of, because the linebackers rotated a lot. What was crazy, though, is when you look at both the Shrine and the Senior Bowl, it was a big defense, which is handy for the Cowboys. On both sides, it was a big defensive standoff. It was the defenses that shined on both sides. So that's good. If I was going to go with a linebacker, though, and you know this, right? Overshone was at the Senior Bowl, wasn't he?
He was.
Yeah.
So he was the standout.
That would be the guy. That would be. I was trying to think then. I was like, I've seen so many. I was like, did I imagine that? It'd be Overshone.
I think Overshone has pushed himself into the second round at this stage.
Yeah.
I would have had him maybe gone just ahead of us in the third round, around 80 to 90. And I think he's gone up into the 50s now.
The only part I worry about with DeMarvin Overshone is that he's a pass rushing linebacker. And I'm wondering how that, if you're going to do that, then perhaps it does help, actually, because then you get Micah Parsons. And I don't know what you think on this, Paul. That you get a pass rushing linebacker who plays from the 2-point, namely on the will. And then you push Micah Parsons to a 3-point as a more traditional defensive end. So then you've still got that pass rushing linebacker that we've had in the past with Micah Parsons, but Parsons is now down at the line.
He's playing as a defensive end pretty much full time.
Yeah.
Do you like it, or do you like him moving around?
I don't know, man. I really don't know. I'd rather have an actual proper edge rusher, to be honest, and and let Parsons be Parsons.
Float. Be that floater still.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's probably who the standout for me would have been Overshone.
Yeah. So then the last one, and we've mentioned it a couple of times, and Jerry has said that we're going to do it. Give me a quarterback from the Senior Bowl.
It'll be the guy who won the MVP of the Senior Bowl. It has to be. The quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl were just, as I said, when somebody mentioned about Max Duggan, is that they were just so hot and cold all week.
Yeah.
It's the same in the Shrine. Just it was all very hot and cold. It's not to say that this quarterback class, ironically, this quarterback class going into this year's draft has been better than what we've had in the last recent years.
Yeah.
When you think of last year, it was like the best quarterback in the class was Kenny Pickett. This year is the opposite way round. There's like a nice group in there. But obviously, Jake was the best quarterback on the day. I'm trying to remember his exact stats. Was something like about 150 yards, something like that. The touchdown was quite good. Hold on.
Yeah.
I can get it. Yeah, 12 of 19 for 139 yards, 1 touchdown.
Yeah,
and won the MVP. He was good. But all the other quarterbacks at the Senior Bowl they just weren't bringing it home. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're talking about Max Duggan. Max Duggan, I think he made 4 completions and just looked flaky doing it.
Yeah. So we've kind of gone around the horn twice. So look, we know the Cowboys always take at least one player from the Senior Bowl.
They take a bunch.
Or a bunch. Is there a guy, Mike, that we haven't, or a position group that we haven't mentioned that you think this is a guy I think the Cowboys have their eye on?
Okay, there's 3. There's 3 players very specifically I've looked at, and I'm like, ooh, they would fit very, very nice. I'll throw in a 4th as well, just for fun. It's just because there's just so many. But where do we start? Oh, Paul was asking about defensive line as well. Look at Ochan Mathis as well.
Nebraska.
Yes. Yeah. Go check him out. He'd be a nice thing to watch. But the 2 guys I was looking at in terms of cornerback was Kai Blue Kelly.
Yeah.
He's really good. Darius Rush, though. He is fast. There's one play where you have to rewind it back a couple of times because you actually think he's the wide receiver. He is that ahead of the receiver. It was just he just flames. And he catches the ball and you watch it and you're like, well, what's the corner doing there? And you go back and watch it, you're like, oh, wait a minute. That's him. And it's just really crazy to watch. But the one that people are all missing, I think will show itself, is that when you stop and you think about it, that what are we doing at the kicker position? Well, the good news is Jake Moody showed you at the Shrine Bowl what he can do. 4 kicks, 2 of them over 50 yards. Nailed them, 4 for 4. Won the Shrine MVP.
That's another question. Will we actually draft the kicker this year?
I think he'll still go undrafted, so you could still pick him up. I'd be surprised if he gets drafted because he's quite far away.
It's not going to be like last year's draft where you had kickers and punters getting all drafted left, right, and center.
It's going to happen because teams get itchy, don't they? And they got to pull the trigger on it. And we all know about what's going on with Dalton Schultz. If you want to stick with the Senior Bowl, you got Payne Durham, who he was a reliable catcher all week in practice, but in the game he was better at the point of attack in the run game. Was pushing his guys back, way back.
Yeah,
and a lot of people get tied up. I know you made a comment about him. About Luke Musgrave, Rich, and he is fast, but he's the type of guy where he is really, really quick, and he's right up there in terms of the tight end rankings. I just worry about the hands. There's a lot of drop passes in his career,
and that's what I don't like.
I know. I was going to say it to you, but it is something probably it's not unteachable what he's doing. It's just a lot of body catches with him, nothing outside of his frame where he's trying to reach out and catch. And if he does try to, the ball just slips out of his hands. But I think with what you've got, do you know when you stop and you think and you're like, well, we've got Jake Ferguson and we've got help me with the other
Peyton
guy.
Hendershot.
Peyton Hendershot. There we go. It was
Sean McEwen.
Yeah. You think, though, what you're really after is a guy who can come in and block, like on 12 or 30 man personnel.
Yeah.
Not that that's going to happen much on the West Coast offense, but it's handy to have it there. Well, Payne Durham is that type of guy that could do that for you. Yeah. Will offer you, an option in the catching game too, but he will be able to help you in the blocking. And that's why it impressed me, because I'm thinking you want something. You've got guys who can run routes and catch. Why about not a guy who's going the other way? So Payne is that type of guy.
Okay.
So, gentlemen, I think that kind of concludes what we said we'd cover this evening. So I think this is nearly a record for this show to be finished at just after 10 o'clock.
That's all right. I'm up at 4 a.m.
Oh. Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So,
it's just like being back at the regular season.
Yeah.
It's true. So unless there's anything else you gents would like to discuss, I'm going to throw it over to Mike to give the details of Thursday night.
Do you got anything? No, Paul? Rich? No? I think, what if, to really get everyone's juices flowing, get some of the names rolling, and I know this is going to excite Paul, what about a mock draft live? I really know how to put a smile on that little Paul's face.
I'm fucking bigger than you.
Yeah. yeah, that's true. In height, maybe not waistband.
I don't know. I'm getting there, mate.
Yeah, that's all right. We certainly will be doing that this weekend at the Super Bowl, though. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Putting some weight on.
So, are we talking a first-round mock draft, Mike, or are we talking a 7-round mock draft?
Yeah, we'll do just a first-round mock draft. We'll find out who's on. I might check it out, see what Heckmer or Kyle Yeomans is doing, see if they're available and join in. Get somebody in. Might try and do that for Thursday.
Are you going to maneuver the board so that Bijan Robinson is available at 26?
But look, random number generator. Whoever gets Dallas then is up to them. I mean, we'll try and get Graham in so we can all roast him for an hour.
Yeah. I think Labarski, you would definitely appreciate Graham being on Thursday, would you?
Yeah, we'll go with the mock draft just so it puts some names out, gets everyone throwing questions and names out and what have you.
And then I think from next week, Mike, we're gonna be kicking back off with Project Prospect, where we look at a positional group. We'll give you 6 guys on the show across multiple rounds. So you're not going to be just going, it's first round guys. You'll get guys, we'll talk about guys who'll be first round, second, all the way down.
Yeah.
And we might
get started it. Yeah, we will. And you think like by the time you've gone round it, we'll be wheeling round again. So, and obviously we could probably throw in quarterback, but what we'll do is we'll throw in like day 3 quarterbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. At some stage, we will discuss and we will let you know what position group we're going to cover. Maybe we might let Mike reveal that on Thursday night.
Okay. All right then. Yeah, well, I can speak to you and then we'll come up with something.
Yeah, absolutely, we will. But look, before we get out of here, we always like to pay the bills and give everybody a shout out. So, Rich, if you want to give a shout out to our good friends over at Cowboys Experience.
Why you got to do this to me first time back, man? Thinking out right. Get yourself over, if you can, obviously, this year, over to a game, over in Dallas or wherever else. But make sure you speak to the guys at Cowboys Experience. They are like top tier, A1, Wagyu beef style. These guys are top notch. They will look after you. Tell them you're from us. Blinking at you. You really like the meet and greets, stadium tours, game tickets, the people you will meet, the experiences you will have. They will be top notch. You will not forget it. You cannot stress how good these guys will be at taking care of you. You have to go and use them. If you don't, you are stupid. But none of you are stupid because you listen to us and we love you.
Mike, I hope that Wagyu beef comment has been recorded as a mic drop.
Yeah, we'll try to put
You can't not
drop.
Wagyu.
I've still got, just so you know, I do have sound effects I've got to put on. Maybe that's something me and Paul this weekend can sit down and start ripping through while we listen to Jamie try and speak inaudibly after a few beers.
14, huh?
Yeah.
Jamie
Do
just
you know what?
needs a few
I am
beers
gonna
for
get.
that.
I'm gonna get that video ready again, and I'm gonna try and put Jamie's face on one of them.
Oh, yes.
Paul, give a shout out to our friends over the pond.
Yes, be sure to follow our fellow content creators from DallasCowboys.com, where they host Hanging the Boys, Talking Cowboys, even do the draft show as well. Also, check out myself and Meg Murray on SB Nation's blog and the Boys, where you can listen to the World's team. Be sure to check out J-Talk, Big Game James, Law Nation, Pick Six Sports, the guys from Canada, Cowboys Can Fan, and many, many more.
And Mike, what is the big event of this year?
It's the international takeover. Just go over to our social media, go check it out. You'll see the details there. You can inbox us, message us, ask questions about it. Where we will be going next year at Thanksgiving to a Dallas Cowboys game.
Next year?
This year. Next season. Next season.
Football year.
Next football year, absolutely. And you will be seeing all of our pretty faces in Dallas at that game. So, make sure and come up and say hello to us. And, get pictures, get selfies, get the autographs, get everything you want with us.
We'll buy you a beer.
I'm sure we'll oblige.
We'll buy everyone a beer.
Yeah. But, Mike, I'm going to throw it over to you to announce Thursday's show, and it's a good night from me.
See you on Thursday for a mock draft.